Billy Butcher seems like just another hardened operative with a vendetta, but he's not. He's the architect of everything you're about to see, a man who turned one personal tragedy into a systematic campaign to burn down an entire empire. Today, we're breaking down every member of the boys, from the leader obsessed with revenge to the loyal dog who refuses to leave his side, starting with the man who started it all, Billy Butcher. Billy Butcher is either the most justified anti-hero in television or a genocidal psychopath in the making. Before you dismiss that, hear me out. The man was a decorated SAS operative, CIA trained, and then Homelander raped his wife Becca, and she vanished. That's not speculation, that's documented. And instead of going to authorities who would have protected Vought's interests, Billy did what any traumatized person with military training and institutional knowledge would do. He decided to burn the whole thing down. Here's the thing though, Billy doesn't just want revenge on Homelander. He wants to destroy every superhuman on the planet. In the comics, that's his actual endgame. He plans to exterminate all of them, including his own team. But in the show, he's slightly more restrained, which is, not ideal. His real genius isn't combat, it's manipulation. He recruits people at their absolute lowest points. Huey's girlfriend just got turned into a smear on the pavement by A-Train. Perfect. Billy walks in, pretends to be FBI, and suddenly Huey's planting surveillance equipment in Seven Tower. MM's grandfather was murdered by a superhero decades ago. Billy knows this. He uses it. Frenchie's drowning in guilt over years of contract killing. Billy offers him redemption through violence. It's brilliant and deeply disturbing because it works. By season 3, Billy's injected himself with Compound Vibe 24, which is basically cancer in liquid form. His body's literally eating itself from the inside. A normal person would stop. Billy accelerates. He partners with Soldier Boy, a man who's almost as unstable as he is because he needs the firepower. He's willing to work with anyone, betray anyone, sacrifice anyone if it gets him closer to Homelander's corpse. The difference between the show and the comics is stark. In the comics, Billy becomes the final villain. Huey has to kill him. In the show, he's still the protagonist, which means we're watching a man slowly transform into the exact thing he claims to oppose, and the scariest part is that nobody stops him because they all need him too much. Huey Campbell. Huey is the least ruthless person on the team, and that's exactly why he matters. Before you roll your eyes, hear me out. The Boys works because somebody in the room still reacts like a normal human being, and Huey is that guy. He's the audience entry point, the emotional damage report, and the one member who keeps trying to drag this whole mess back towards something resembling decency. He joins after A-Train turns Robin into Red Mist, which is one of the most brutal welcome to the show moments ever. That death is Huey's origin, but it's also ours. He gets pulled into this world the same way we do, by watching something disgusting happen and realizing nobody in charge is going to fix it. Great, so now the electronics store clerk is in a war against superheroes. And unlike Butcher, Huey doesn't bring rage first, he brings brains. He handles electronics, surveillance, hacking, and the kind of strategic work that keeps the team from just sprinting into a wall and dying like idiots. He's the guy setting up cameras, listening devices, access hacks, and backup plans, while everybody else is threatening someone with a crowbar, which honestly is a very different skill set from being scary. That contrast is the whole point. Butcher wants blood. Huey wants results. He's the member who keeps asking, sometimes silently, are we sure this is the only way? And for a while, he tries to believe there's a cleaner path. He keeps reaching for official channels, legal pressure, and institutional accountability, like the system might still have one honest screw left in it. Turns out, no. The deeper Huey gets, the clearer it becomes that Vought isn't just a rotten corporation, it's a whole rotten machine with a smile painted on it. Every time he tries to play by the rules bend around the powerful people breaking them. That's what makes him so important. He's not just the nice one, he's the proof that niceness alone can't survive in this world unless it learns how to fight back. And that's why Huey works so well opposite Butcher. Butcher is pure force. Huey is the conscience that keeps getting bruised. One of them kicks the door in, the other one checks whether there's still a legal door at all. Next up is Mother's Milk, and he's the guy who has to keep both of them from tearing the entire team apart. Mother's Milk. Mother's Milk is the reason the boys don't turn into a complete clown car of revenge, blood, and bad decisions. Before you roll your eyes, hear me out, because Marvin T. Milk is not just the responsible one. He's the guy holding the whole mess together while Butcher burns every bridge in sight, then acts shocked when the house catches fire. At face value, MM is the team's moral compass. He pushes back when the mission stops being about justice and starts being about Butcher getting his next emotional hit. And that sounds simple until you remember he's doing it in a group that treats therapy like a weakness, which, yeah, is a terrible system if you enjoy survival. level. Marvin comes with actual discipline too. In the show, he's a Marine Corps hospital corpsman, which means he isn't some random guy with a moral opinion and a decent jawline. He has military training, battlefield medical knowledge, and the kind of calm you only get after being surrounded by chaos long enough to hate it properly. That background matters, because MM doesn't just complain about bad plans. He can smell a bad plan from across the room and tell you exactly where it's going to explode. That matters because MM is constantly the one checking Butcher's worst impulses. Butcher wants to kick the door down, break the plan, and set fire to the leftovers. MM is usually the one going, "No, we are not doing that," which is a full-time job when your leader is Billy Butcher. Somebody has to be the adult in the room, and somehow it keeps being the guy who looks like he's one argument away from quitting forever, and he isn't just nagging from the sidelines. He understands the team well enough to see when they're drifting off course. He knows Huey is still trying to stay human. He knows Frenchie is one bad day away from spiraling. He knows Kimiko doesn't need another command. She needs somebody who actually sees her. MM is the one who notices all that while everybody else is busy trying to win a war with a butcher knife. Great strategy. Terrible mental health plan. But here's the kicker. Staying principled in the boys is almost impossible. The whole team is built around revenge, and MM is the guy constantly choosing not to become a monster just because the monster started it. That takes more strength than punching somebody through a wall, because anyone can lose control. Not everybody can keep it. In the comics, he gets an even stranger twist, because he does have a superpowered angle. The show strips that away and keeps him as a top-tier conventional operator, which honestly works better. It makes him feel more grounded, and it makes his restraint hit harder. Anybody can be reckless with powers. MM has to hold the line without them, with nothing but discipline, judgment, and the patience of a man babysitting a loaded grenade. So, while Butcher is the team's explosion, MM is the brake pedal. And in a story like this, that might be the most important role of all, Frenchie. Frenchie is basically the team's mad scientist, except instead of creating life, he's creating very specific ways to kill superhumans. Chemistry, engineering, explosives, criminal contacts. The guy's a walking black market catalog, and he's genuinely brilliant at it. But here's the thing, all that genius comes wrapped in layers of guilt so thick it's almost suffocating. His childhood was a masterclass in trauma. His father was bipolar, violently abusive, and had this charming habit of kidnapping him repeatedly. Young Serge would jump from buses and trains trying to escape, only to get dragged back for more punishment. That kind of systematic abuse doesn't just disappear, it metastasizes. So he became a drug trafficker, a gun runner, a bomb maker, basically a professional killer for hire. And he was good at it, too good, which meant years of blood on his hands and a conscience that never quite stopped screaming about it. Then he found Kimiko locked in a basement cage, and something shifted. Suddenly he had a reason to redirect all that destructive genius towards something that felt like redemption. Not redemption exactly, he's too self-aware for that, but maybe the possibility of it. His technical work is where he becomes invaluable. When the team needed translucent dead, Frenchie didn't waste time trying to match his carbon density skin with conventional weapons. He went biological. Plastic explosive, rectal insertion, problem solved. For other soups, he helps the team come up with whatever ugly little solution the situation demands, because that's what he does best. He can build poison, plant bombs, and improvise under pressure like it's a hobby. He figured out that Soldier Boy was vulnerable to Novichok, a Soviet nerve agent, through pure deduction and research. Every superhuman has a weakness. Frenchie finds it, then builds something specifically designed to exploit it. Beyond the weapons, he's got connections, deep ones. He negotiated shelter with the Clarkson Avenue Haitian Kings when the boys needed to disappear. He speaks multiple languages fluently, including sign language variations he learned specifically to communicate with Kimiko. He's the team's bridge to the criminal underworld, the guy who knows people who can acquire literally anything. But the guilt never stops. His substance abuse issues, the drug relapses, the hallucinations, they're not character flaws, they're symptoms. He's trying to chemically silence a conscience that won't shut up about all the people he's killed. And when that guilt spikes, it compromises him operationally. The guy can build a bomb in a pinch, but he can't outrun himself, which is, not ideal. What makes Frenchie essential isn't just his technical brilliance or his criminal network, it's that he's the only member of the boys who genuinely understands that they might be becoming the thing they're fighting against. He sees the violence, the moral compromises, the escalating brutality, and it haunts him. Unlike Butcher, who's made peace with becoming a monster, Frenchie is still fighting against it. He's still trying to be better, and that internal conflict, that refusal to accept his own darkness as inevitable, is what keeps him human. But if you think one damaged genius is complicated, wait until you meet the female. Kimiko Miyashiro is either the most powerful member of the boys or the most tragic. Turns out, she's both. Forced into violence across 3 continents, stripped of her voice, and experimented on like a lab rat, she became one of the most dangerous people alive. But here's the thing, she's also the team's most human member. So let's talk about the female. the female. Kimiko wasn't always a weapon. She grew up in Japan, on the coast, surrounded by family, palm trees and moonlight, normal kid stuff. Then the Shining Light Liberation Army invaded, murdered her parents, and conscripted her and her brother Kenji into their armed forces in the Philippines. Years of forced military service, escape attempts, recapture. By the time she made it to the United States, she wasn't a person anymore. She was inventory. She got trafficked into the US through a triad operation tied to the larger Compound 5 pipeline, which is already a deeply normal sentence to have to say. Then came the injections, the torture, the basement cage beneath a New York bodega, locked away like something that needed to be contained. And here's where it gets dark. She couldn't speak. The show eventually makes it clear this wasn't some random mystery. It was psychological trauma, tied to killing another child in a silent fighting pit during her time with the Shining Light Liberation Army, which is, not ideal. Frenchie found her in that cage, and instead of leaving her there, he freed her. That single act of compassion became the foundation for one of the show's most redemptive relationships, because Kimiko didn't just gain a rescuer, she gained someone willing to learn her language. Literally, Frenchie taught himself her sign language. They developed KSL together, Kimiko's sign language, a personalized system that let her communicate on her own terms. She types on her phone, she uses emoji, she rebuilt herself from silence into presence. Physically, she's terrifying. Superhuman strength, durability that lets her walk through injuries that would kill normal people. She recovered her powers after Soldier Boy depowered her, something no other soup has managed. She can move through a room full of armed operatives and leave them all on the ground before they realize what happened. But that's not what makes her dangerous. It's that she's both the most powerful and the most vulnerable member of the team simultaneously. Her trauma doesn't disappear. It lives in her. Trigger events send her into violent spirals. She struggles with the fact that she's become exactly what her captors made her, a weapon. The difference is choice. She chooses to fight now. She chooses to be part of the boys. She chooses Frenchie. And that choice, that agency she reclaimed from people who tried to erase it, is what separates her from being a tool and being a person. By season 4, Kimiko and Frenchie's relationship becomes explicitly romantic. Two people who were systematically dehumanized finding each other and choosing to build something real. It's the show's most genuine moment of healing in a series defined by trauma and violence. But even that redemption is fragile. Her nightmares never stop, and neither does the damage. Recovery isn't linear. It's messy and incomplete and ongoing. What makes Kimiko essential to the boys isn't just her combat effectiveness. It's that she represents the possibility of reclaiming humanity after systematic dehumanization. She's proof that even after everything, war, trafficking, experimentation, torture, voicelessness, you can still choose who you become. You can still build connection. You can still matter. But if you think one traumatized survivor is complicated, wait until you meet the man who actually founded the boys. Grace Mallory. Grace Mallory is the reason the boys exist at all. Not Butcher, not Huey. Mallory is the one who turned anti-Vought rage into an actual Black Ops machine. And that changes everything. Before you roll your eyes and call her just another CIA suit, hear me out. If you want to understand how a team like this survives, you start with the person who knows how governments hide bodies, bury scandals, and call it national security. Mallory had the military brain, the intelligence contacts, and the stomach for ugly work, which is, not ideal. She's a retired CIA operative, and the original organizer behind the first boys operation. In the show, Grace Mallory is a former deputy director of the CIA, and that background matters because she doesn't fight Vought like a civilian with a grudge. She fights like somebody who already understands how power protects itself. That means surveillance, leverage, deniable assets, and the kind of planning that makes everything look clean right up until the floor starts soaking through. And she had real institutional backing. This wasn't some random group of guys with baseball bats. Mallory built a government-adjacent resistance cell with enough structure to actually track soups, gather intel, and hit Vought where it hurt. Billy Butcher became the face of the operation, but Mallory was the blueprint, the hidden architect, the person who knew that if you wanted to crack a system like Vought, you couldn't just punch it. You had to map it, infiltrate it, blackmail it, and use its own rod against it. That part matters because Vought is basically a corporate nation-state with a smiling logo. You don't beat that with vibes. You beat it with files, witnesses, surveillance, dead drops, and a whole lot of people who are terrified of ending up on the wrong side of history. Mallory understood that instinctively. She knew the machine only works when everybody thinks nobody else is watching, so she built a crew designed to watch back. And she wasn't doing it from some fantasy of noble heroism either. Mallory is cold, pragmatic, and fully willing to make choices that would make a normal person walk out of the room. That's the job. The point was never to be clean. The point was to survive long enough to matter. Great in theory, absolutely disgusting in practice. That's the part people always forget. Mallory's methods worked. They had to. Vought is too too massive to fight with pure emotion. You need sources, files, pressure, and people on the inside who are already scared of what they know. Mallory understood that better than almost anyone. She knew where the bodies were buried because, more importantly, she knew who buried them and what badge they were wearing when they did it. But here's the kicker. Effective doesn't mean clean. Mallory's whole career is built on morally compromised choices, and the damage doesn't stay theoretical. It lands on real people. Her dealings with Lamplighter are the perfect example. He was blackmailed into working as a spy for the boys, and the chain of events around that arrangement ended with him killing Mallory's own grandchildren. That is not a footnote. That is the bill coming due. Great plan, horrific outcome, and that tragedy is exactly why Mallory feels so important in The Boys. She isn't some detached mastermind watching the board from a safe distance. She's the person who keeps proving that every war against corruption eventually starts looking a little bit like corruption itself. Once you start using secret assets, coercion, and collateral damage as standard procedure, you are no longer operating outside the system. You're just using a darker version of it. Cool. That's also a thing that happened. That's the real shape of her legacy. Mallory didn't just create resistance against monsters. She created a resistance model that lived inside the same logic as the thing it was fighting: deniability, collateral damage, secret assets, sacrificing the few to hit the many. Once you start fighting soups with Black Ops rules, you are already halfway into the same swamp. You might be aiming at Vought, but you're still standing in blood up to your ankles. That's why Mallory matters so much. She isn't just a founder. She's the proof that the original war against Vought was never pure. It was organized, tactical, and necessary. It was also dirty from the start. And that makes the next guy even more interesting, because if Mallory was the one who built the machine, then the Legend is the one who knows exactly what it cost. The Legend. The Legend isn't just some guy. He's the walking, cocaine-fueled archive of every crime Vought ever committed and got away with. Former senior VP of Hero Management, which basically means he spent decades burying bodies, paying off victims, and making sure the public never found out that their favorite heroes were committing atrocities on a regular basis. He's the guy who knows where the bodies are buried because he personally ordered the burial. Here's the thing about the Legend. He's not helping the boys because he suddenly grew a conscience. He's helping because he knows where all the bodies are buried, literally and figuratively, and because Vought stopped valuing him the second younger, more efficient operators took over his job. He's a man watching his empire crumble and deciding that maybe, just maybe, he can profit from its collapse. Revenge wrapped in pragmatism. His stories are insane. He'll casually mention that Soldier Boy might have been involved in JFK's assassination, or that he personally covered up incidents so catastrophic that they would have ended Vought before it even became a household name. And the worst part? You can't tell if he's exaggerating for effect or if he's actually describing real historical events that got buried so deep nobody remembers them anymore. He's eccentric, unreliable, and absolutely hilarious, in the way that only a man with nothing left to lose can be. He does cocaine at his age like it's going out of style and talks about his sexual conquests with the kind of detail that makes everyone in the room deeply uncomfortable. The man's a walking contradiction, simultaneously credible and completely unhinged. But here's where it gets complicated. The Legend's cooperation with the boys isn't altruism. It's self-interest wrapped in nostalgia. He misses the old days when he mattered, when his word could make or break a superhero's career. Now he's reduced to being a consultant, a source of institutional knowledge that the boys need, but don't particularly respect. He lost his leg to an electroshock incident, which only deepened his resentment toward Vought and his willingness to burn bridges with the organization that abandoned him. That missing leg is a constant reminder that Vought discarded him the moment he became inconvenient. What makes the Legend valuable isn't his combat ability or his technical skills. It's that he knows the architecture of Vought's corruption in ways that nobody else does. He knows which politicians are on the payroll, which heroes have committed crimes so severe that Vought had to literally erase them from public record, and which corporate decisions were made specifically to cover up superhuman misconduct. He's the institutional memory of a criminal enterprise, and that makes him simultaneously useful and dangerous. Every conversation with him is like accessing a classified database that's been locked away for decades. The Legend represents something crucial about the boys' operation. They can't win against Vought through force alone. They need people like him, people who understand how the system works from the inside, people who are willing to betray their former employers, because those employers betrayed them first. He's not a hero. He's not even particularly moral. He's just a guy who knows too much and has decided that watching Vought burn is more entertaining than watching it continue to operate. He's the ultimate insider threat, except he's on their side now, and that's exactly why he's so effective. He doesn't care about justice or righteousness. He cares about being relevant again, about having information that matters, about being the guy in the room who knows the real story. Every secret he reveals, every conspiracy he exposes, every historical atrocity he casually mentions is another way of saying, I was important, I mattered, I knew things. The boys use him because they have to. The legend helps them because it's the only way he knows how to stay in the game. It's a transaction dressed up as an alliance. But if you think one compromised insider is bad, wait until you meet the actual nightmare fuel, Terror. Terror is the smallest member of the boys, and somehow he says the most about Billy Butcher. Before you roll your eyes, hear me out, because this bulldog is one of the last things in Butcher's life that isn't a weapon, a lie, or a grudge with legs. He's Billy's loyal English bulldog, and in a story built on betrayal and people getting ruined for fun, that matters. Terror stays with Butcher when everybody else is dead, disgusted, or plotting behind his back. He's unconditional loyalty in a world that doesn't know what that word means anymore. And that's the kicker. Butcher can still care about something without turning it into a mission. He'll brutalize a room full of monsters, then treat this dog like home. In the comics, Terror keeps coming back as a reminder that Butcher is still human under all that chaos, which is, not ideal for everyone else. If you want the cleanest summary of Billy Butcher, it's not a speech. It's a bulldog at his feet. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.